Sorry, I just got so distracted. All right, I'll pop it up over here. I have like, not necessarily a marathon of a day, but definitely like a sprint of a day, because I am done fairly early. But instead of taking you along for all of that, which is kind of the same thing you see almost every day, we're gonna use today to talk with an expert. A few videos back, I offered it up. If you are an expert in this field of poverty, of food scarcity, food banks, food stamps, anything like that, just shoot me an email and we will get you on for an interview. And I think that it's really informative and will not only provide insight for people like me who do not have to deal with it, but also provide resources for people who do have to deal with things like this. So I am going to play the interview here and then we will catch back up once I am done with my day.
So my name is Shelby Love. I'm from California. I've lived here my whole life, and I currently work as a program manager for a nonprofit that provides transitional housing for homeless families, as well as individuals, but our primary client is families. And we are working with people who, for whatever reason, found themselves without housing and are working to rebuild their lives. And so we aid in offering them a safe, stable place to live for a year, in addition to services that help, them with budgeting and other things like that, so they can in the future, qualify for housing on their own. That's the ultimate goal.
I would love to hear a little bit more about what do you find the biggest obstacle or hurdles are for the people that you work with?
That's a great question. Everyone has their own unique situations. We have people from very diverse backgrounds. Some of our clients grew up in poverty, and so this is something that they've been dealing with since they were born. Other of our clients are more situationally homeless. Ultimately, there's always kind of an inciting incident. They were doing okay. They were making their rent. They were able to afford their life. And then someone loses their job or gets really sick and misses 6 weeks of work because, they had to have surgery all of a sudden. A very common thing that a lot of Americans struggle with, it's not just people who are below the poverty line, is not having the ability to afford emergencies. And so that emergency happens. And then all of a sudden, they're 2 months behind on their rent. They're getting evicted. They, or their cars are getting repossessed because for so many different reasons, people find themselves in a situation where they can't afford an emergency. And I would say with our clients in particular, the common theme is, for whatever reason, they do not have strong, stable relationships in their lives. Whether or not that means that they grew up in a home where their parents were abusive, they grew up in foster care. We have clients that came out to their parents and their parents kicked them out of their house, and all of a sudden they're, they have no one to turn to if they need anything. I think you mentioned in one of your videos that if you ever were in a hard time, you could call your parents. A lot of our clients don't have that luxury. And I have the same luxury. I've had experiences where it's like, hey, I have an emergency. I call my mom and dad and they're in a position where they can help. And a lot of our clients, either, even when they have good relationships with their family, they don't have family that's in a position to help. And so really one of the common misconceptions with people who are experiencing homelessness or living below the poverty line is it's just a money problem. They're either bad with their money, or they're spending too much money, or they're not making enough money. If we can just get everyone more money, that solves the problem. And that's not true. There's so many more things that go into it than money. It's the relationships that we have with people. It's racism and how that affects people's ability to, gain and keep employment. Other social issues like that tend to be the ones that are the most consistent problem. It comes out in money. You see the effects in how much people earn, their financial stability, but really it's all these other causes that kind of create the issue.
You're absolutely right, just about there just being such a big misconception about who could need help and why.
Oh, it's one of the things that's the most frustrating is people, especially, working with people who are homeless, they always have this idea that the homeless person that I work with is the person that they see living on the, in a tent on the street. Those people also need help. But what they don't realize is that's actually the minority of people who are homeless. The majority of people who are homeless or are living, in severe poverty, the term that people will use a lot is called hidden homelessness. It's people who are surfing, or they're living in their cars, or maybe, they live in their car for a couple of days until they can save enough money to live in a hotel for a week. They're not necessarily being covered by the statistics that are gathered. And a lot of people have this misconception that it's lazy people who are unemployed that just don't want to do anything, when really 50% on average, people who are living in homeless shelters are actually employed full time. There's just this huge misconception that these are people who, just don't want to do the work and therefore don't deserve help. And that's really just not what I see personally, and what the statistics show either. And the idea too is that I think that we have this misconception misconception that we're immune to it. There's nothing that could ever happen to, your regular middle class American that could put them below the poverty line. And like I said, 6 in 10 Americans can't afford $1,000 or more emergency. So
Wow.
your car breaks down and you have a $1,000 car repair, and your car is how you get to work. It's how you get your kids to school. It's how you drive to the grocery store to get food, and you can't afford it. You're screwed. What are you supposed to do? And if you don't have family you can borrow money from, if you don't have credit cards, or if you don't have credit, you can't get a loan, all of a sudden you have no transportation, and that makes it impossible for you to do everything else to keep you in your housing. It doesn't really matter how much money you make. You can have someone that is really struggling financially that makes a lot of money because of how expensive housing is and all these other factors. So there's just a lot of misinformation on what it looks like and what it means to be homeless. And really, in my experience, I would say the majority of people that I work with, they have a lot of circumstances that are not their fault, and that is why they are where they are. I have worked with people who have gambling problems and things like that, but that's definitely the minority. There are people who, do get in their own way, but most of the time it's people who just are struggling for a lot of times for no fault of their own.
Since this entire month is about feeding America, so food related, I would just love to hear if you've had any experiences with the people that you work with regarding food and nutrition and budgeting in that way.
Yes, that is actually probably the number one thing we talk about, both financially, but also just life wise. We're not dietitians. We're not trained to, talk to people about nutrition. But the number one thing when we're budgeting is how are you going to eat? How are you going to afford rent? You do the budget and it's like, hey, these are your bills and you have $200 left and you have a family of 4. What are you going to do? And so sometimes, a lot of our clients do receive SNAP benefits of food stamps. In California, we have a pretty decent system. So we're a little blessed in kind of, weird way to put it, that a lot of our clients actually receive enough money through food stamps to feed their family, but it's still on a budget. They're still not, they're not eating filet mignon every night for dinner. Like that's, and so we do talk a lot about, okay, how do you stretch a dollar? How do you, what are the less expensive grocery stores to shop in your area? Things like that. The main issue that we deal with a lot of our clients is they do not have the space, the time, or the energy to cook super elaborate, healthy, the healthiest meals in the world. And so, most of our clients have access to a stove or a hot plate and a microwave. So a lot of the coaching or like the encouragement that we'll do is like, okay, hey, how can you go find a relatively inexpensive frozen meal that meets, your needs and, can feed your family, and you can pop it in the microwave, and it's time efficient, it's, financially efficient, and it's, it's good enough. And that's kind of how we, approach things with our clients. Is right now we're focusing on good enough. You need to eat enough. If we can get you to eat enough, we're winning.
Is there anything else that you kind of wanted to tack on here at all?
Yeah. The one thing I would say is I made a list of some resources that a lot of times people haven't heard of. They're always great to contact and reach out to. If you are concerned about becoming homeless, if you're currently homeless, if you are, living below the poverty line, even if you're not living below the poverty line. So the main places that we send people to help, get resources. The number one is there's a number called 211 that you can call. It is in most counties have some sort of 211 number. And basically it's the emergency line for Health and Human Services. So It's like if you called 911, but you're calling and saying, hey, I'm homeless. I need to find a shelter tonight. And a lot of times you'll just get a huge list of okay, these are the 10 food banks in your area. These are the 10 homeless shelters in your area. And then you can then go call and, see what works for you. Contacting Health and Human Services in your county directly can also be a really good idea. If you live in a smaller area, sometimes they don't have a 211 number, but they will have a Health and Human Services department. And typically that is county run. Another one is if you are in school or have children that are in school, a lot of times they have some sort of liaison or a counselor whose whole job is to assist families that are struggling. And so we actually have a lot of clients that get referred to our program through school counselors who go, hey, your kids said that you guys are living in your car. Here's this program you can go to, and then they connect with us. So that's a really good resource as well. And then food banks. Food banks are wonderful. Donate to food banks if you're able to. All food banks have different rules. And so one of the things that we encourage our clients to do is go to every food bank you can possible. So, one food bank might say, hey, you can only come once a month. Great. Go to that one once a month, and then find a food bank that lets you go every single week, or go to 2 food banks that let you go once a month. And that way you have 2 weeks worth of food. There are a lot of food banks, and there are a lot of very small food banks. A lot of churches will have some sort of food pantry. A lot of like LGBTQ plus centers will have some sort of food pantry. And so reaching out to different organizations that tend to be in the service of others, whatever, that looks like, either they have a program or they can find one for you. And that, really is the biggest, I think, key to all of this is there's never any shame in asking for help.
It's time to check donations because I'm tired, I'm hungry, and I'm cold. And I have a few more like admin things that I could do, I probably should do, since the rest of this week is really filling up. But I'm going to take a shower, make some dinner, hang out with Zoe and Kevin, and call it a night. So our donations are at $4,161.59. We are crushing it. I know that so many of you in the comments have told me you've donated, or a lot of you have said that you're waiting for your next paycheck to donate, which I think is just so amazing and generous. I actually have had a number of people directly donate to Feeding America because the business that they work for will match their donation. And a lot of those people have cashed in on that offer that if you want to donate directly to Feeding America and you're doing it at the tier level, email me that receipt and I will 1000% let you cash in on that. And the other thing that I've heard from people in the comments is that they don't live in America, so they don't necessarily want to donate to Feeding America. So what they've done instead is actually donated money or time or food to a local food bank in their area, which again, I think is so freaking fantastic. And on that note, that is what we're doing tomorrow. We are going to the food bank in my neighborhood and I am volunteering half of my day to do whatever they need help with. So I'm very excited about that. I'm not sure how much I can film, but I'll definitely we'll do I'll give you the 411 on the experience. So anyway, guys, make sure you hit that subscribe button and I will see you all tomorrow.